Hey, how you doing? Nick Digilio here. Thank you for checking out my YouTube channel. The videos are updated almost daily. It's free. Subscribe. Please check out my Patreon channel. I really would hope that you could help me out. It keeps the videos coming and the content coming. If you become a patron just by donating a little dough every month, 3, 6, 9, 25 bucks a month if you want to, it helps me. It keeps me going. These are all DIY things that I'm doing, the content, the videos, and all that stuff, and I could use your help. And Patreon is a great place to do that, to support artists and people who want to do their stuff but need some financial, a little bit of help, some donations. And on top of that, you get bonuses if you become a patron. So donate today, please do, at patreon.com/NickDShow. You donate, you get bonus materials and videos, including behind-the-scenes stories about being in the radio business for a long time, and about the unjust firing that I had at WGN. If you want to know the inside story, I'll give it to you, but you got to be a patron. So patreon.com/NickDShow. Give some dough today. It helps, man. It really does, and I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Please give today. Patreon.com/NickDShow. And subscribe to my podcast, which is separate from all of this stuff. My podcast is 2 days a week, 2 podcasts a week, all new, Tuesdays and Fridays, and it's part of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. It's the Nick D Podcast. Please subscribe at radiomisfits.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, if you're looking at the title of this video, you're probably as surprised as I am by the fact that the title of the video indicates that I actually like the fucking Batman movie. The new movie, The Batman. Saw it last night, Tuesday, at a big DC-sponsored IMAX screening that was for big fans only. And I went so that I could review it on my podcast fully with Eric and Steve. So I wanted to see it early and make sure that I saw it in time so that I could review it with Eric and Steve on my podcast before we actually record the podcast. I wanted to be able to see it. So I saw it last night. Shocking, I gotta say, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Now, I will be the first to admit when I'm wrong about a movie, or you know, something like that. Doesn't happen very often. Quite frankly, it doesn't happen very often. I'm usually never wrong about what I'm going to think of a movie. You know, usually I'm right. So it doesn't happen very often. So I will admit when I'm wrong, which happens once every century. But I will admit when I'm wrong, and I was wrong about the Batman. The last time I did a 180 like this on a movie that I was not looking forward to, that I thought was going to be terrible, that I was going to hate the moment I sat down to see it, was the remake of Suspiria from a few years ago. A movie that I thought I was going to hate, that I didn't want to be made, that I said, no, 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 no. There's no way that this movie should be made. Went to see it, and I fucking loved it, and it was on my top 10 list at the end of the year. And I feel the same way about this movie. There was no way that I wanted to see this goddamn movie. I did not want to see another dark, pretentious, you know, sour, dour take on the Batman. Oh, it's raining, it's dark, and he's a dark, foreboding character. Fuck off. After the nightmare of sitting through 3 of those Christopher Nolan movies, and sorry, but the 3 Christopher Nolan Batman movies suck. They're shit. And after sitting through the DC stuff with Ben Affleck and the Batman versus the Superman and the Justice League and all that goddamn nonsense, and Zack Snyder and his cuts can go to hell. Fuck all that. I did not want another one of these goddamn movies. And I saw the trailer for it, and I got, oh, God, this is going to be... Then I heard the running time was 3 hours. I was like, well, kill me now. But it's fucking great. I stand corrected. It's a great movie, and I owe it all... You can owe it all to Matt Reeves. Matt Reeves co-wrote the movie with Peter Craig. He directed it, and it's fucking great. It is great. Yes, it's dark. And yes, it's raining, and yes, it's all this, and yes, the character himself is sort of dark and depressed and all that stuff. But it works here. It works because Matt Reeves grounds it in a reality that Nolan didn't succeed at. I'm not even going to talk about the DC shit, the Superman and the Batman, the Justice League garbage. That's not even worth talking about. But all the Nolan movies that everybody seems to love, he got it wrong. He got it completely fucking wrong. Completely wrong. This one, if you're going to do it in, you know, the dark Batman kind of thing, Matt Reeves was like, oh, you know what? Actually, the way that Nolan is doing it is bullshit. It's wrong. I will show you how to make a dark Batman movie. That's exactly what he did. Now, I'm kind of just doing this. I've got some notes written down here because I'm just kind of doing it. It seems that this one is based a little bit more on Batman Year One, which is the Frank Miller comic, which was about the first year of Batman being this vigilante in Gotham City. This movie takes place about the second year into Batman being a part of Gotham City, and they don't want him there. At the beginning of the film, the cops don't want him there. The authorities don't want him there. He is this masked vigilante. He doesn't even know his place in the city. He wants to fight crime and do this in honor of his dead father and his dead mother. And thankfully, we don't have to sit through scenes of the dead mother and the father being shot, over and over again. We've seen that in 9,000 different movies. So we don't have to sit through that shit. They do reference it, and it's a big plot point, a major plot point of the movie, thematically especially. But this takes place, he's about 2 years into it. Nobody wants him there. The cops certainly don't want him there. And the only one that does, that allows him to be around, is Commissioner Gordon, played by the fantastic Jeffrey Wright, who, for my money, best Commissioner Gordon of all time. Let me just say this. I'm talking about film Commissioner Gordons, because the Batman TV show is on a whole separate plane. That's still the best Batman thing ever. The Adam West TV show still. I'm not including that. I'm talking about the cinematic Batman movies, and I'm not talking about the '69 movie with the shark repellent with Adam West. All of that stuff. The Adam West Batman, that's a separate thing. It rules. It will hover in godlike status over anything that anybody ever makes, because that Batman, the Adam West Batman, the TV show, by far the best Batman thing ever. But cinematically, this is the best Batman movie as far as I'm concerned. So, anyway, Pattinson plays Bruce Wayne. And he plays him as full-on emo. He is as emo as you get, from the hair to the makeup that he wears underneath his mask, to the black eyeliner. And it's a very emo kind of film. The score by Michael Giacchino, who is a fantastic composer, is magnificent, and it takes elements from which the song Something in the Way by Nirvana, which is the last song on Nevermind, is used a few times in the movie and sets the tone for it. It's really funny because on my podcast, just the last podcast that I did, my partner and I, Esmeralda Leon, who I love, who is on every episode of the Nick D podcast, we talked about the generation differences between us. She's a millennial and I'm a Gen Xer, and we talked about those things. And the world of Gen X came up, and grunge, and how we were all and how this is all. And I just found it really amusing that this movie takes, Something in the Way by Nirvana and uses it as its core theme in terms of tone, feel, and style, and music, cues and things like that. It's a Gen X Batman movie, I think. So I just found it really weird that, days after I do this podcast with Esmeralda, and we spend a good portion of it talking about Gen X and what Gen X means, that I think this Batman movie, and Matt Reeves is Gen X, by the way. Matt Reeves is my age. This is like a Gen X Batman movie, and fucking A. That's all I'm saying. So anyway, quickly the plot. Robert Pattinson plays, Bruce Wayne / Batman. He's a vigilante. They don't want him around. But there are some major league murders happening. There's a serial killer known as the Riddler, although he's really not running around. The Riddler himself, played by Paul Dano, who, by the way, is fucking great in this. And he starts killing major players in the world of Gotham. The opening of the movie is the mayor being murdered. That's the first scene in the movie. The mayor of Gotham. During an election, there's an election happening. The movie takes place during an election time, days. It starts on Halloween and it goes through November 6th. The movie starts on Halloween, which also adds to the mood of the movie. It happens on Halloween, and during this week of a mayoral election. So the mayor gets murdered by the Riddler, who leaves behind these clues and these puzzles and riddles, as the Riddler does, and he invites the Batman in. Most of these riddles are asked to the Batman. So the Batman becomes part of the investigation, to the chagrin of the power of the Gotham world and the cops. And so the Riddler is targeting all these power brokers, these politicians, and these heavy hitters in the world of Gotham City as his targets. He's a serial killer he's murdering people. So this movie is about serial killers, and it's dark. And in it, Paul Dano plays the Riddler, so he's the mysterious serial killer. But it's about the relationship and how corrupt Gotham City is. Its connection with the mob, played by John Turturro, who plays Carmine Falcone, who is the mob god, the leader, and Colin Farrell, who is fucking unrecognizable in this movie. He plays Oswald Cobblepot, who is also known as the Penguin. And he's, by the way, this Penguin is not like, rah, rah, rah. He doesn't do that kind of shit. He's not otherworldly. He's not from another. He doesn't have relationships with penguins. They call him the Penguin because he looks like a penguin. He's a fat Italian Goomba, asshole like mobster. Hey, yo, hey, what's up? He's got gold teeth, but he's fat and he's goofy. He's got kind of a big nose, and he looks like a penguin, so they call him the Penguin. It's not because he's a villain calls himself the Penguin. I'm the Penguin. He doesn't wear a top hat and he doesn't do any of that shit. He's a Goomba. He's an asshole mobster who physically resembles a penguin, and that's why they call him that. So he's not like another, it's not like a superhero villain. He's just a dude that, he's a mobster who has a nickname, the Penguin. Again, grounded in reality. By the way, the Riddler is not, he doesn't run around wearing question marks on his suit and go, and do the shit like that. He's fucking nuts. He's a serial killer, insane wackadoo. Also based in reality. And it's one of the reasons why this movie works so well is because the movie is not outlandish in terms of plot. It could happen in a real city at any time. None of it is outlandish, and that's the beauty of it. So the plot, and I won't get into the whole thing, it involves another woman who is played by Zoe Kravitz, and she plays Selena Kyle, who is trying to stop these guys too, and trying to find out what's happening between all these mobsters and the corruption of what's going on. But she's doing it because she has a friend who is involved, who may be involved and who may be murdered, and so she gets involved. She becomes Catwoman, but they never call her Catwoman in the movie. She doesn't wear like a cat outfit. She can break in. She's a thief. She's a cat thief, like a cat burglar, but they never call her that. She likes cats, but it's not about that. She doesn't turn into a cat, like Michelle Pfeiffer's did in Batman Returns. She just happens to like the garb that she wears, the black ski mask and the tight black suit that she wears. She wears it because she goes in the middle of the night and steals shit. And the mask that she wears, like the ski cap that she wears with the hole in it, on top it kind of pops up a little bit. So it kind of looks like a cat, but she's not Catwoman. It's never like, ooh, Catwoman is here. No, she's Selena, and the outfit that she wears kind of resembles a cat. But that's it. Again, grounded in reality. This woman could exist in the real world. She's not a superhero Catwoman, over the top, isn't this crazy? No, this is a woman who's scarred, who has a fucked up past. And so does Pattinson's character. And that's what the movie's about. It's about the sins of the father. So essentially what happens is, reluctantly, the police bring in Batman to help them solve these murders, these cold-blooded serial killer murders that the Riddler leaves behind as puzzles to solve. So you've got Andy Serkis plays Alfred. Peter Sarsgaard, I didn't even know Peter Sarsgaard. Peter Sarsgaard plays one of the corrupt honchos of the government. He plays the DA. And as I mentioned, John Turturro plays the head of the mob, and Colin Farrell, who is amazing, plays one of his henchmen. And the plot, I'm not going to get into all the details of the plot, but what happens is they try to capture it, and at one point, like, Batman becomes like a fugitive, but he's always working with Jeffrey Wright. And he starts working with Zoe Kravitz. They start working together. But they never are like known as the Bat and the Cat, all that stuff in the trailer. No, they are two lost souls who emotionally are trying to find out what's happening with all these murders and with the connection to the government in Gotham City, and with the connection with the police and the mob, and they're doing it for personal reasons. They're not like, hey, they don't come flying in, like Catwoman doesn't come in and fly in, and Batman doesn't blah, blah, blah. None of that shit happens. These are very wounded individuals, these two people. They play, Selena and Bruce are both really fucked up individuals with screwed up pasts, and the sins of the father also completely are the reasons why they're doing what they do. So it's all grounded in a reality. It's all grounded in something that a human being, a normal human being, not some comic book jagoff, can actually grasp onto. And that's why it appealed to me. I guess I really don't like comic book movies very much. Like all the Marvel movies, there are some that I like, but for the most part, I'm completely detached from it. I don't give a shit about any of them. I fucking hated the last Spider-Man movie. I hated it. I didn't give a shit about anything that was happening. I couldn't emotionally, I've never been emotionally invested in a comic book movie. Couple of things here and there. Logan is the only comic book movie that I was ever emotionally involved in. And for my money, Logan is the best comic book movie of all time. And this is the best comic book movie since Logan because it taps into a reality that I can grab onto. I can't grab onto these Marvel movies. I can't do it. Any of them. I can't. I don't give a shit about what's happening on screen. I don't care about the characters. I don't like the superheroes themselves. I don't give a shit about any of them. They kill off characters and bring them back at the drop of a dime in those goddamn movies. So I don't give a shit at all. I am not emotionally invested in any of the Marvel movies. None of them. This one I was. I cared about Batman. I cared about Selina. I cared about what was happening. Cared about the relationship between Alfred and Bruce, which is a great way of handling it. So, other things that really stand out. The way they handle Bruce Wayne in this character, in this movie, is amazing. Like, you feel for the guy. The way Pattinson, by the way, Robert Pattinson is unbelievably good in this movie. He's fucking great. And like I said, the relationship between him and Alfred is beautiful. He doesn't live in opulence. He doesn't. The place where he lives is like this weird sort of dusty tower. He lives in a tower. He doesn't live in like a big manor. He never goes out. He plays a recluse. Nobody ever sees Bruce Wayne. He's not the millionaire playboy that he is in all the other Batman movies, including the stupid-ass Nolan movies. He's like this dark, damaged recluse who hates going out. The only time Bruce Wayne in the movie makes an appearance as Bruce Wayne, the only time he goes out in the public is for a fucking funeral. That's what we're talking about here. There's no dances. There's no fundraisers. He doesn't go out and dilly-dally and be romantic with the possible, leads in the romantic leads in the movie. He doesn't do that. He's an emo, damaged guy who's got a fucked up past. And the only time he ever makes a public appearance in the movie as Bruce Wayne is at a funeral, which really, really says a lot about what's going on here. So he doesn't live in opulence. The Batcave is a dump. You know what I mean? It's like a shitty, functional Batcave. The Batmobile is not like a cool, gadgety, otherworldly spaceship object. It's a souped-up car that he clearly worked on, and it gets fucked up and damaged during one extended scene in the movie. It's a souped-up car that you see, up on a rack in the background of the Batcave. So the Batmobile is just a car that's all souped up that he clearly worked on. And after there's one big chase scene in the movie, he clearly is going to have to go home and fix it. So it's not like this, otherworldly thing. A lot of it is based, and he's a human being in this movie. Like, he gets hurt, like physically he's hurt. There's scars and wounds all over his body and all over his back. And there's one fantastic scene where he has to escape from somewhere and use one of his gadgets to fly off of a building. Only it doesn't really work that well, and he ends up fucking himself up. Like, he gets hurt, and that's it's as realistic as you can get. And none of the stuff pushes the boundaries of realism at all. Like, this seems like the gadgets seem real. Like, the armor is bulletproof and stuff like that. But you know what? He's in multiple amounts of pain after he has, encounters with villains. And so it's just fascinating. He's a fascinating character that I cared about. In all these other Batman movies, I couldn't care less. And in the Nolan movie, I don't give a shit about what's going on with Christian Bale. His performance is bad. The character is poorly written. Nobody cares about anything nobody cares in it. I just didn't give a shit. Here, there's something at stake. And what the movie is really about, thematically, really, it depends on what these characters live for and what they die for and what they are about. So all of the stuff that this movie attempts, the darkness, the seriousness, the sins of the father, all of these things that it attempts, these themes, it succeeds brilliantly at. Everything that Nolan attempted to do in the dark world and failed miserably at, this movie succeeds at. And all of the shit that the ridiculous Todd Phillips, who's got no talent, tried to do with the Joker, with that nihilistic vision, the dark vision, everything that Todd Phillips attempted and failed miserably at, with his awful Joker movie, with an awful performance by Joaquin Phoenix, that movie's a piece of crap. And if any movie puts that movie to shame in terms of style and substance and darkness, it's this movie. Everything that Todd Phillips and Christopher Nolan attempted in the world of darkness to try to explore themes and failed miserably at, both Nolan and Phillips, Reeves absolutely succeeds. And Matt Reeves is a terrific filmmaker. He's a guy who takes things that shouldn't be good and makes them good. This guy made the Planet of the Apes movies good again. in the 2000s, in the 2010s. You know what I mean? He directed and wrote two and all three of them, but he directed two of those reboots of the Planet of the Apes movies that had no business being good, and they're great, and they're really great. He remade Let Me In. He remade Let the Right One In, and he called it Let Me In. Didn't like that. I appreciated the attempt, and he made he breathed life into the Giant Monster movie with Cloverfield. So this is a guy that takes ideas that should be exhausted and tired and makes them fresh again. And here's the lesson that I learned. I learned never doubt the co-creator of Felicity, because he co-created Felicity. And there you go. So never doubt the co-creator of Felicity. This guy directed a bunch of episodes of Felicity. He's one of the creators of Felicity, one of the greatest shows ever with Kerry Russell. And so as far as I'm concerned, go all the way back to when he created Felicity. That's why you should trust Matt Reeves. So all right, let's get into some of these performances. As I mentioned, Pattinson is amazing in it. Zoe Kravitz is fantastic in it. She's charming and funny and great, and they have great chemistry together. Turturro is fantastic as the main villain, Carmine Falcone, the main mafia guy. Great performance. Sarsgaard's got a small role as the DA. He's fucking great. He's only in like 3 scenes, and he's amazing in it. I love Peter Sarsgaard. Colin Farrell, unrecognizable, magnificent. Now, I also want to mention that as dark and as dour as the movie is, it's also very funny. There's a lot of humor in it, which lacked ridiculously in the Christopher Nolan movie. The Christopher Nolan movies were so serious and so, why so serious? Fuck off. But they were so serious, there's no humor at all. Nolan found there was no humor at all. There was no joy in it at all. There was one of the things I hated about those movies, was that there was no joy in it, you know? This one there is. As dark as it is, as serious as it is, as dark as the themes are, as serious as they make the characters, and as violent and as creepy and scary as it gets, there's a lot of humor in this movie. There's a good amount of humor, and it's earned. So it's not so serious and so fucking pretentious like those Christopher Nolan movies were. There's a sense of humor in this movie. Colin Farrell is hilarious in this movie as that mob kingpin. Zoe Kravitz provides a lot of good laughs. And there's wonderful light touches throughout it, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it is an ultra serious film about serious themes, and it's creepy and dark and awesome. But it doesn't lose that sense of humor like Christopher Nolan's movies did and Joker did. No joy whatsoever. This has joy in it. As I mentioned, I'm not a big comic book guy at all, and so anyway, but I loved this one. I absolutely loved it. Now, I do want to mention that as dark as it gets, everybody says it's like Seven, and it is. There are moments where you will be absolutely reminded of Seven. I don't want to give too much in the plot, but there's a scene in the movie that recalls the moment in Seven where Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt actually discover the lair of John Doe, and there's a scene in the Batman that is very similar to that, and will remind you of Seven. But here's the thing. The riddles and all that stuff. Everybody's comparing it to Seven. But here's the thing: Andrew Kevin Walker, who wrote Seven, said that he was a comic book. He's a comic book fan, and indeed, everybody was saying, "Oh, well, this new Batman movie is kind of a ripoff of Seven. It's inspired by Seven." Yes, it's true. It's very, very similar to Seven in terms of style. It's very, very dark and very fucked up. I don't take kids to this movie, by the way. Do not take kids to this movie. It's rated PG-13, but don't take kids to this movie because it's fucked up and dark and murderous and very, very, very scary and very similar in style to Seven. But ultimately, though, Andrew Kevin Walker was inspired by the Riddler, so it kind of comes full circle. Everybody's going to be like, "Oh, well, that's like Seven." Well, you know what? Seven was like the Riddler. Seven was inspired by the Riddler. So the original inspiration for John Doe in Seven was kind of the Riddler from the Dark Batman series. So, it may be similar to Seven, but it's actually, it goes back to the beginnings before Seven. So, and I also want to mention Paul Dano in this movie. Paul Dano is amazing in this movie. He is terrifying. He's absolutely terrifying. Best thing, and I love Paul Dano. He's a weirdo, and he's kind of annoying in real life, but he's a terrific actor, and obviously I love him in everything, especially There Will Be Blood, but he is Everybody's unbelievable in this movie. Pattinson is amazing. He's one of the best Batman ever, and all that stuff. And Jeffrey Wright. Everybody, top to bottom, the entire cast is great. But Paul Dano as the Riddler is fucking terrifying. There is one scene in this movie where I was literally freaking out. Like, he completely freaked me out. So much better. Everybody's talking about how great Heath Ledger was, maybe the greatest Batman villain. He won an Academy Award for it as the Joker. Paul Dano blows Heath Ledger out of the water as a Batman villain. He is so much better as the Riddler than Heath Ledger was as the Joker. It's not even funny. It's not even close. I mean, everybody talks about how Heath Ledger was the greatest. Blah blah. Nope. He's been unseated. Nope. I never really liked Heath Ledger's performance that much in Dark Knight anyway. Never did that much anyway. But even fans of Heath Ledger will have to admit that Paul Dano blows him out of the water. One of the best villain performances in comic book movie history, and he's terrifying. Paul Dano as the Riddler is bone-chilling and terrifying. So, it does not seem 3 hours long. I want to make sure that people know that. This thing is paced beautifully. It's engrossing. I was in from the first moment of the movie, from the first get-go. I never expected to like it. I was bound and determined to hate it. It won me over within the first 10 minutes, and for the entire 3-hour running time, I was there. I cared about the mystery. I found it suspenseful. I found it scary. I thought the mood was beautiful. It was beautifully shot. The score is amazing. The use of the Nirvana song is amazing. Performance is top to bottom great. An engrossing thriller, really scary, really creepy, really, really, really dark in a great way. So much better than all the other attempts to be dark with Batman. They finally got it right. And it's great. It's thrilling and scary and exciting. The action sequences are great. The characters are good. Everything about this movie works. If they wanted to make a dark Batman movie, they finally got it right. It only took them 30 years to do it, but they finally got it right. Matt Reeves finally gets it right. Finally, we have a good dark Batman movie. Not just a good dark Batman movie, but a great dark Batman movie. The Batman is a great film. A great film. So much better than the Marvel poppy nonsense. This movie has substance. It's about something. It will stay with you. It's the second best comic book movie ever made after Logan. And those are the comic book movies I like. I guess I don't like the stupid shit where they, whatever. The point is that this is a great movie. I expected to hate it. I loved it. Did a complete 180. I absolutely admit that I was completely wrong about what this movie was going to be. The Batman is great, and I would not be surprised if it ended up in my top 10 list at the end of the year. So, I was wrong. My initial response and my initial thought about this movie was completely off the mark. It's great. The Batman, a great movie. So go see it. See it on the biggest screen you possibly can. I saw it in IMAX, and it's great. So surprised. I loved The Batman. Yeah, I did. And I'm going to see it again.